And welcome back to Crypto Maniac. Thank you so much for joining me again. You know what? It's been a relatively short run and the support has actually been really great. Now, I realize the channel isn't huge at the moment yet, but I still wanted to say thank you anyway. For the week's worth of content that I put out a while back, there's a bit of a pause in between. And just from the last couple of videos from this week, the support has been really positive. So thank you very much. Some of the comments have been really great. There was one on Bitcoin Gold that I just put out a couple of days ago because it looked like a lot of people were really struggling to figure out how to get their Bitcoin Gold exactly, particularly off their Ledger hardware wallet. If you're interested in one of those, there's a referral link in the description. Otherwise, there's several other hardware wallets to choose from. But anyway, there are also some other comments in there, actually just one, which is actually pretty awesome as well, I gotta say. Where I always say in these videos that I'm really going to try my best to try to be concise, and I got a comment that said that I kind of tend to blab on and on, which totally fair. I'm never actually going to delete any of those comments. So in light of all of that, I'm going to try to make this a little bit snappier today. So fingers crossed for that. Also, I would like to just say that, yeah, in light of the way that everything has been going and the new subscribers have just been really piling up, I would say close to 50% more just because of the last two videos that I just recently put out, so that's great. I also started a Twitter account here as well, so please follow along there, and as opposed to you just following me, I'd kind of like to rather have a conversation so that it's kind of this two-way thing. So for what that's worth. And I post a lot of various things here. Sometimes there are things that are going on that you won't necessarily find at the channel here, and if there's something going on, you'll probably find it there first. As well as some kind of funny memes. And for those from way back, if you're a Bob Ross fan, then this one is for you. But anyway, moving on from there, I've also made a Steemit account, so feel free to follow me there as well. And Steem's a really great platform where, as it turns out, I just started as well, make a few cents with some Steemit currency. So that's great, and I would encourage you as well, if you've got something to say, put it out there as well, and send me a link as well. So DTube, another platform where you can also post your content and find a lot of crypto news there. There are a lot of really great channels out there as well. So I've just gotten one started there. And I've also started a Patreon account as well. So the idea is I'd really love to see this whole thing grow into something where we can actually even hit the street and have some fun with some random strangers in hopes of edutaining. So I'd like to educate as well as entertain, and just to say, I'm not too proud to make a total ass of myself just for a little bit of edutainment. So if you'd like to see that, then put that in the comments, or please feel free to share or contribute to Patreon. Moving on to the first kind of point that I'd like to make, which is, I think I've alluded to this before, which is it's really interesting to see the number of people kind of getting on the Bitcoin and crypto train over the last little while across my social media. Probably you've noticed the same thing as well. So on Facebook, for example, a lot of people are starting to come out and ask publicly what their network thinks of Bitcoin and all that sort of stuff. One of the interesting things also that I think is that from reading through some of the comments and the feedback that people give, it's really interesting to sort of gauge what people think about it and how they feel about it. And one of the most common ones that I see is, forget all about that, just invest in pot stocks instead. So what I kind of think about that is, I mean, this channel has nothing to do with pot stocks or regular stocks in traditional markets, but what I would say is, I've got some pot stocks myself. They do really well. Do they do nearly as well as Bitcoin? No, but for the standard route on the regular old stock market, they do pretty darn well. But that said, this has nothing to do with regular outlets. So what I would say is, if you're interested in both, just diversify a little bit and get both, because probably you'll do pretty well on that. Just like if you're not sure which one's going to win out in the end, Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's not really a competition anymore. They both do different things, but if you're worried about that, just goddamn get both. So there was a real world situation yesterday. I've done a bit of consulting for some friends, family, and in the meantime, some clientele in the real world. And it's been really interesting to see. So I put together this little chart for a friend of mine who I was just talking to last night, We had a couple of drinks and watched a game yesterday, and I asked him, hey, did you ever end up getting your account set up and verified? And he said, you know what, I saw it go down and I decided against it in the end. So I put this little handy graphic together just to sort of say that this is where we talked about it in the summertime, and this is where we actually got together to get his account all set up. But in the meantime, he's decided that he's not going to bite after all. And you know what? I definitely don't want to put any pressure on anybody, because I totally get it. It's a wild roller coaster ride and it's not for everybody. So my comments to him were, you know what? You know it exists. Maybe follow along with it and educate yourself, and it's not right for everybody. So if that's the case, then wait for it to become a little more stable and deal with it then. Hi there. But in the meantime, a really interesting statistic that I heard come out last week is that Bitcoin finally surpassed the market cap of McDonald's. And just out of curiosity, I also wanted to sort of put it out there just to sort of see from my own curiosity, where does that even line up with a company like Starbucks? Granted, McDonald's has been around much longer than Starbucks, but even Starbucks here, as you can see, has a market cap of about 82 billion as of today. Now on to the real topic of today, which is Tether, which you may have seen and has been, to put it mildly, the subject of some debate over the last little while. Now Tether, if you're not aware, the idea behind it is to put real American dollars on the blockchain so that they're digitized, so that we can move them a little more easily. Now the idea is, of course, $1 should always equal $1. So on CoinMarketCap, once in a while, you can see it kind of go up a little bit in value and then back down again in value. Now, against the dollar, that doesn't look good, because instilling confidence is a big deal. So again, $1 should always just equal $1. And beyond that, the other issue is whether or not the Tether project actually has real dollars in their bank account somewhere, or in some secret vault locked up, so that the circulating supply of USD Tether equals the amount of real physical dollars that they have somewhere in their vaults. Now, they have come out to try to say that, yes, don't even worry about it, we've got that covered, but there has been some debate, and they haven't been overly transparent about the whole thing, and it's really hard to say, and that is one of the problems with centralization. It is very centralized. That definitely also puts a target on its back, because there's a giant vault somewhere with a pile of cash sitting in it, hopefully. But a lot of people have also raised the interesting point that even if they're supposed to have that cash backing the whole thing, then there's nothing to say that they wouldn't be investing that money also, because it's almost kind of silly to have that much money just sitting there when you could be loaning it out or investing it in other places that could make you more money. Now, the circulating market cap would actually net them quite a bit in returns. So they're not supposed to do that, but we have no idea, the consumer, so it's really hard to tell. That said, why should you even care what happens with Tether if you're not a user? Well, the problem is that, and I always say this, that Bitcoin is a bit of a delicate flower, which I realize is a bit ironic since it's kind of tied to drug dealers and child traffickers and all that sort of stuff. From those who don't understand Bitcoin. That said, of course, as soon as somebody like Jamie Dimon sneezes, then Bitcoin kind of blows down a bit. Yes, then it skyrockets. It picks itself right back up again and just plods along anyway to new highs. So it's not a huge concern when 30 million go missing, but should the whole thing blow over, and now with Bitfinex coming into question, it does raise a few eyebrows. Now, Bitfinex is also tied to the whole Tether project, and it's been a little bit tricky lately, just because, for example, they've put out a couple of tweets just to say that, yeah, we're solvent, and there's a bit of conspiracy theory behind this whole thing, and everybody is contributing to a lot of FUD. Now, their second of two tweets also just says, please ask for evidence, and they basically just put out an announcement to say that they're going to put out an announcement. Now, that came out on November 19th, as you can see here, and in the meantime, there hasn't been anything else except to say that they've got some new pairs against the euro, which I think is not what people are looking to hear, so that just looks a little bit suspect. In the meantime, of course, and back to the Ledger or other hardware wallet argument, if you're worried about these things, don't keep a lot of your currency on an exchange. I've personally, quite a while ago actually, started to filter out a few investments out of Bitfinex. Now, they've been hacked before, and they came up with a really interesting project to try to pay people back in some way, but that's maybe a long-winded discussion for some other time. Suffice it to say, they've actually been relatively honorable, but their honor is being put in question again, so make of that what you will. Now, I also made a video, the very last one in fact, talking about Bitcoin Cash, and wherever you stand on that whole debate, there are a lot of things that look really artificial about it. And so we had that pump that went up last week where Bitcoin Cash went up as high as, depending on the exchange you saw it on, $2,500, $2,700 per Bitcoin Cash. So that definitely also raised some eyebrows. Now, it also looks like a bit of a pump, and at the same time in hash power, it actually overtook Bitcoin as the dominant chain at the time. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding that, Bitmain and Roger Ver and friends. So we'll see what happens, but coming up, there's a bit of a whisper in the background just to say that there could be another pump in the cards coming up around Thanksgiving or slightly just after. Specifically, I heard something about November 26th. So it remains to be seen what happens there. But the way I look at it is if you take out a bit of an insurance policy and still hold your Bitcoin Cash, then I can't see it overtaking Bitcoin, but even if it does, you're covered, right? So as one goes down, the other goes up and you're in the clear. And also, just as a little side note, Amanda B. Johnson, who you know and love, appears to be back, or at least she's trying to get back. So just a cute little tidbit right here. She put out a tweet asking for a job at Dash again. Now, it's really interesting to me once in a while I see some negative comments about Amanda B. Johnson, but love her or lump her, I gotta give it to her. She's done a lot to try to provide educational material over the last couple of years to do a lot for the crypto space. So, I mean, I gotta say, I'm really happy to see her back, and you can follow along for the ride if you're curious about that. And lastly, this article just came out about 10 minutes ago while I was filming here, but an asset manager launches Europe's first Bitcoin mutual fund. Yay! So you can check out the article for yourself, but it's a French asset manager who's putting all this together and hopes to see some pretty significant growth over the last little while. And importantly, I think for the rest of us who probably won't be investing in that fund necessarily, it's another contact point for the general public to have a little bit of exposure to Bitcoin, and also just to sort of start to clear out the bad reputation that it's gotten about the whole drug dealer, child trafficker thing. So I think that does a lot to try to actually promote it as something that could potentially do some good in the world and make people some money. And let's face it, that is a good motivator for a lot of people. And with all that said, we're done here for today. So if you like the video, please give it a like and a share. And I would love to also see a few new subscribers. So thank you in advance for doing that. And again, connect with me on Twitter and all over the place, and let's have a bit of a discussion. So I would also like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Tether, Bitcoin Cash, and that whole conspiracy theory that's been going around? And also, if you have, as I alluded to before, some ideas about how I can make a complete ass of myself on the streets interacting with some strangers, I would love to hear your ideas below. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.